Thanks, Angie. How's everybody doing today? Thank you for joining. I'm really excited to share this new presentation of cases with you. I have a few cases that are a little bit longer because I have a before and after to show you how the HuMap report changes with treatment. And then I have a lot of shorter cases to give you kind of a wide array of all the different things you can learn about your patients from the HuMap and help you practice coming up with treatment plans based on how the report looks. So let's just jump into it. First of all, hormones can be measured in serum, saliva, or urine, and urine is the only way to see how hormones are being metabolized, and it allows you to assess the activity of the enzymes involved here. Enzymes like 5-alpha reductase, which makes testosterone into DHT, which is 3 times more potent and can cause androgenic excess symptoms. And urine testing also allows you to look at phase 1 and phase 2 detoxification of estrogens and to see if there might be a need for risk-reducing treatments, thinking about breast cancer risk, prostate cancer risk, and so on. And for patients who are on hormone supplementation, urine testing can show you how the body is breaking down those hormones, whether there's too much conversion in one direction, in an unsafe pathway where you might want to intervene, and you can see if things are being safely metabolized and eliminated. And this is a list I came up with of common actionable findings revealed by the HuMap report. This is not everything you might find, but these are some things I might want to work on improving if I see this. So thinking about the androgens, you might see excess aromatase or 5-alpha reductase activity. In the progesterone section, lack of abundance of progesterone and its metabolites might correlate with anovulation in premenopausal females. It also might correlate with prostate health in men. And then the estrogen section allows you to assess metabolism by phase 1, 2, and 3 detoxification. And then urinary corticoids can signal excess overnight cortisol secretion if the waking value is high, because everything that pools in the bladder while you're sleeping will be represented by that first morning collection. And so we're going to give you an array of cases, male, female, younger, more mature, so that you can get a kind of a broad experience with this test. But we're going to start with a premenopausal female. I'm naming her Kate, and she is suffering from heavy, painful periods with mood swings and hot flashes. She's 35, and this is part of page 1 of her HuMap report, where we give you the overview of all the most clinically important markers, and it's color-coded based on your patient's results. Red is high, yellow is the top 10% of the reference range, green, optimal, light blue is the bottom 10% of the range, and then dark blue is overtly low. And so the first thing you notice on the top left of the report is the 4-hydroxyestrone to 2-hydroxyestrone ratio is upper range, meaning that there's too much 4-hydroxylation, not enough 2-hydroxylation. So that's a higher risk pattern that we're going to want to address. Also, 5-alpha and 5-beta pregnadiol are green. These are the major metabolites of progesterone, both of them being optimal, and the fact that her cycles are regular suggests to me that she is likely ovulating. But the progesterone and allopregnanolone are suboptimal. These are 2 analytes that DDI tests that other labs do not test because we have the sensitivity to detect them in liquid urine. Other labs estimate progesterone by adding the pregnadiols together. Allopregnanolone is a metabolite of 5-alpha pregnadiol, and it stimulates GABA receptors, and it can have calming effects. So we may want to support better progesterone secretion in this patient. A few of the parent estrogens, specifically the estrone and the estriol, are low or suboptimal. Those are in the light blue zone. And then the last thing we notice is the lack of abundance of DHEA and corticoids. So that's a lot of stuff to take care of. Next, we're looking at how well she's metabolizing her estrogens. Look at the gray bars. The 4-hydroxyestrone percentage is high, so it's outside of that range of dotted lines. She has low estriol. It is the blue E3 in the corner there. And then her methylated estrogens are comparatively lower than her hydroxylated estrogens. If you look here, I'm just going to point here. See how these are, this one's red and then this one's green. Looks like COMT is not methylating enough of it. Same thing. This is upper range and then this is low. So there's kind of a pattern. Let's look at her methylation. So she has upper range and elevated catechol estrogens. Those are the phase 1 hydroxylated estrogens. And then methylation activity, looking at the ratio of the methylated estrogen to hydroxylated estrogen, both of these ratios are dark blue. So the COMT enzyme is supposed to be inactivating these hydroxyestrogens and marking them for elimination, but this patient is struggling with that. So we're going to support her with that. Page 10 of the report looks at methylation of all 4 of those hydroxyestrogens. Other labs might only give you 1 methylation ratio, but we look at all 4 of these because it's not always the same when you look at the 2-hydroxy side and the 4-hydroxy side. So this is a really thorough view. So here's the treatment we came up with. We chose 2 combination supplements for this patient because I like trying to minimize how many pills I'm having the person take. And also I like to really emphasize lifestyle change. But as far as what supplements can help with phase 1 and phase 2 detox and the other problems we're trying to address, this is a supplement that contains DIM, which is kind of the most common choice to push to hydroxylation and improve that 4-to-2 ratio. And I often hear the question, isn't DIM going to lower her estrogen? Well, we're going to find out because we have an after test for her. So we'll see if it does. And then other ingredients in this combo supplement are going to reduce oxidative stress, support liver function, support methylation, decrease inflammation, and improve insulin sensitivity. Don't forget to promote healthy nutrition, blood sugar balancing diet, all of those things, stress reduction. But then supplement-wise, the other thing we're going to do is this supplement that is meant to support progesterone production and adrenal function. So this is a way to kind of combine those actions. So this one supports the corpus luteum function to increase progesterone. It contains cramp bark, which can help relieve menstrual cramps. And you can find that alone as a tincture. If menstrual cramps are the only thing you're treating, it works really well. And this also has the herb Coleus forscoli, which actually increases the activity of a lot of the enzymes involved in the whole hormone cascade. So it supports CYP21A2, which converts hormones from the progesterone side over to the cortisol side. It also helps support DHEA levels, and it promotes aromatase action, which is going to convert androgens to estrogens. And it helps move 16-hydroxyestrone to estriol. So this is hopefully going to improve the estriol, improve the DHEA, and so on, and relieve menstrual cramps. So here's the before and after. I'm just showing you that left-hand side of the front page. And I tried to come up with why each of these changed. And so definitely the DIM improved the 4-to-2 ratio. Vitex looks like it improved her progesterone. And then Coleus forscoli, I think it possibly did all of these things. And just notice how many more analytes are green on the after versus before. So things got better at the 6-month follow-up. Do we have more? Okay, so here's estrogen metabolism. Notice now that the 4-hydroxyestrone percentage is in range. That's because we pushed to hydroxylation. Look at all this. All these methylated estrogens are green or in range technically. So it looks like methylation improved. And we're just going to compare that to before. Look how many things were off here. The estriol was low in this upper right corner, and now it's green. So I think Coleus forscoli did that, and I think we had treatment success. Actually, all her symptoms got better. She is not complaining of heavy cycles. She's not complaining of too many cramps. Her nausea got better. And she actually stopped taking her supplements maybe a week before the follow-up, and some of her symptoms started coming back. So that's a good sign that she still needs to support with those supplements. Oh, what else was I going to say about this? So as far as methylation, gosh, the methylation ratios were still a little bit low. They did get better. 2 out of 4 are in range versus 1 out of 4. So there's still room for improvement here. And I just want to show you other ways to support phase 2 detoxification, because there are kind of 2 different sides to it as far as methylating hormones. Either you're methylating with COMT, or you're going to conjugate with glutathione sulfotransferase. So you need to support MTHFR if needed, because this is going to hand a methyl group over to COMT, which then methylates the estrogen. But if the estrogens form semiquinones, then the glutathione sulfotransferases have a second chance to conjugate them, so they can't bind to DNA. Here are the different supplements that can support phase 2. It basically includes methylated B complex and folate. SAMe is a methyl donor, and that can be helpful for COMT. Magnesium is a cofactor for COMT. And then all the things listed on the very bottom support the glutathione sulfotransferases, like 2 cups per day of rooibos tea, for example. But don't forget to ask why. If COMT is struggling, in this case, the patient was dealing with a lot of stress and still had a pretty strong sugar habit. And so the supplements were not enough to overcome the lifestyle issues. So the next step here is going to be add methylated B complex, 2 cups of rooibos tea, and really work on the stress coping skills and calming practices and find a way to decrease sugar intake. So now we're going to move on to the corticoid section. I have just a few short examples of things you can find there. This is a 49-year-old premenopausal female who complained of stress, feeling irritable, feeling fatigued, and she was having insomnia. And so what I noticed about this report is that this waking cortisone is high here, and then so is this 2-hour post-waking cortisone and cortisol. That's going to be the highest point of the day where you find cortisol and cortisone in urine, and it kind of correlates with the cortisol awakening response, not exactly. But what we found was she exercised in the morning, she didn't have any breakfast, and she had poor sleep the night before. And all of these can lead to an increased cortisol awakening response. And that is how we can explain why she had really high 2-hour post-waking urine values. So it is recommended to avoid strenuous exercise before or during this test. Although if someone had a lower 2-hour post-waking cortisol, then I might recommend exercise in the morning to try to boost that value. And the other thing is, with any HPA axis issues or stress or fatigue, we really want to help the patient improve their sleep. The supplements to support adrenal health won't really make up for not sleeping. So we're really going to make that a priority. And the other thing I wanted to say is that this patient was doing intermittent fasting by kind of restricting her eating window, but she was doing it by skipping breakfast. And I think most people do it that way. But all of the research that shows benefits with this type of eating, you get more benefits from having an earlier eating window, and you just stop eating earlier in the day rather than skipping breakfast and eating later. So I do recommend an eating window, between breakfast and dinner that's maybe 10 hours if we're trying to improve insulin resistance or lose weight or improve cholesterol. But I recommend starting that at breakfast time. The other thing to mention is it looks like the hormones here are not metabolizing efficiently. So if you just notice that the cortisol and cortisone are both high/upper range, and then all their metabolites are comparatively lower. Some things that can cause that would be hypothyroid or poor liver function, which is maybe more rare. So if you haven't already with a patient like this, who has a report like this, definitely think about a metabolic panel and thyroid labs if you haven't started with that. And then the other thing I wanted to say is this patient had very low progesterone. And once we put her on oral progesterone to help her sleep and improve her progesterone levels, this treatment also upregulates HSD3A, which breaks down the corticoids. It's this enzyme here that is it breaks down everything in the cortisol section. So we're going to get 2 birds with 1 stone for this patient. I don't have a follow-up for her, but this is her treatment plan. We're going to move her time-restricted eating to earlier. We're going to work on blood sugar balancing diet, oral progesterone to help her sleep, especially because she's 49 and women tend to start needing progesterone at this time. Another thing to help sleep, slow release melatonin is great for helping people stay asleep. And then don't forget sleep hygiene. People need to have the right behaviors to encourage sleep, keeping it dark at night and then having bright light in the morning. So this is another patient, another example of what you might see on cortisol reports. It's a 50-year-old male who's feeling tired in the afternoon, having trouble falling asleep, staying asleep, feeling stressed, craving sugar. So we saw high cortisone and cortisol when he woke up, and this is going to alert you that he's probably overproducing cortisol while he's supposed to be asleep. So because the morning collection is representing everything that pooled in the bladder. One fine point, if you suspect it, if the patient is snoring or if their partner witnesses weird things happening during sleep, you might want to rule out sleep apnea because that's one other thing that can cause high cortisol at night. You also want to make sure blood sugar is balanced if that's not already done. Usually I do that workup when I first see the patient, not necessarily the sleep test, but definitely I like to test their blood sugar on the first visit if I don't already have labs. But for this patient, we're going to think about a blood sugar balancing diet, increasing physical activity, sleep hygiene again, and box breathing, because that's a really good calming practice. And then supplement-wise, we're going to want to use things that bring down the cortisol at night, like magnolia bark, phosphatidylserine, L-theanine, and then also liposomal melatonin. Melatonin can decrease cortisol secretion when you take it at night. All right, so now we're going to change gears and look at a HuMap report for a patient who is on bioidentical hormone supplementation. And if someone is starting a new hormone or changing their dose or anything like that, you want to test at least 12 weeks after you've started the hormones. And just to remind you, looking at hormones in urine, we're looking at how they are metabolizing and converting and how a person's risk looks based on how they're metabolizing their estrogens. We're not trying to judge if our dosage was correct. That's not how I tend to use the report. But this patient is on an estradiol patch. She's on oral progesterone and DHEA, and she is, her night sweats are under control, but she's still complaining of morning fatigue, bad sugar cravings, and vaginal dryness. And she's 52, if I didn't already mention that. So just to let you know, patients on hormones, those hormones are going to show up high if it's a postmenopausal female because the postmenopausal ranges are used. So we're just trying to see how these are metabolizing. And so if you look at these red progesterone metabolites, that's what we expect. And we also want to make sure that too much is not converting to 21-hydroxy and 17-hydroxy progesterone. Too much 21-hydroxy progesterone is associated with type 2 diabetes or conditions involving excess adrenal output. And then 17-hydroxyprogesterone also is associated with high insulin levels, stress, and too much alcohol. So this is a really good pattern. I know that this progesterone showed up gray for this patient, but I think she is just kind of quickly metabolizing. So I would say there's nothing to worry about there. And then another thing to point out, these colored triangles represent the patient's levels using the postmenopausal reference range. The white triangles are the patient's levels compared to the premenopausal range to give you kind of an additional way to assess. Next, we're going to make sure that her DHEA supplementation is not excessively converting to testosterone or causing elevated 5-alpha reduced androgens. That's not just DHT, but all three down here also are 5-alpha reduced androgens and can cause androgenic symptoms like acne, scalp hair loss. So I like that none of these are high. Remember, yellow is technically in range, so that looks good. Testosterone is technically in range, being light blue. Don't worry about this elevated etiochalanolone. That is a 5-beta reduced androgen. I believe it's probably high because we're supplementing DHEA, and it's not associated with any problematic concerns. Okay, so next we're looking at the estrogens. They are mostly high as expected because she's supplementing. What's important to glean here is that the 2, 4, and 16 hydroxyestrone percentages are in the optimal range. This dark gray zone in the middle is optimal, and then between the two dotted lines is the reference range. So this person has great phase 1 estrogen detox. Looks like on the 4-hydroxy side, she's methylating things pretty well. On the 2-hydroxy side, these are comparatively lower. So now we want to look at those actual methylation ratios. And sure enough, on the 2-hydroxy side, both for estrone and estradiol, methylation ratios are low. So everything is going well with this patient's supplementation. The one thing we might want to add to her treatment is supporting methylation for her, which we just went over with one of the prior patients. So our treatment plan after doing the HuMap for this patient is we are going to address the slow COMT. We want to think about the cause. So I think it is her high sugar diet. We're going to support her with a low glycemic index diet. Chromium to balance blood sugar can be helpful. Also, if someone has really strong sugar cravings, you might think about testing yeast in their gut. You can do a stool culture. And if you find yeast, caprylic acid is a good treatment for that, plus sugar avoidance. And this patient's going to get methylated B vitamins, SAMe, and magnesium to try to boost methylation. And then one more thing, because she has vaginal dryness, I just want to add, her current supplementation isn't addressing it. So I want to add a 1 milligram estriol vaginal suppository that's dosed every day for 2 weeks and then taper down to 1 to 3 times per week as needed for symptoms. And then we might think about repeating the HuMap in 12 weeks to see how our treatment did. So now we're going to move on to seeing how the HuMap can help a male patient with hypogonadism. This is one of my longer cases, but you can learn a lot from this. So I included a lot of detail here. This is Robert, who has a standard American diet. He is 62. He exercises a lot. He's really good at, spending time doing sports. He does have a kind of borderline hemoglobin A1C. His BMI is just 26, and he has a little bit of dyslipidemia. So I think the exercise is not making up for the diet, but I'm glad he's doing it. These are his symptoms. He has mild BPH. He is complaining of decreased erectile function and some digestive symptoms. He also has stiff, sore muscles and joints, which can go along with low testosterone. And since he's really into sports, we want to pay attention to that too. Don't want that to get in his way. So back to hormones. This is the first page of the HuMap. This is the whole thing. I think I'm going to zoom in on each section of this in case you need to see it bigger. But just at first glance, looking at the top of this rainbow arc, we can see that phase 1 estrogen detox is not going very well for him. His 4:2 ratio is high. We really want to balance that more towards 2-hydroxylation. And it might be contributing to why he has upper range oxidative stress, which is that yellow on the top left of the screen, 8-hydroxy-2-deoxyguanosine. It's an oxidative stress marker. Working our way down to the light blue section, we notice that testosterone is suboptimal. And then the total of going to the dark blue section on the bottom left, DHEA plus DHEAS is overtly low. So the general lack of abundance of androgens on this report clinically is correlating with his symptoms. And then also notice that all of the progesterone metabolites are low. Here, I'll just put to them if you need to find them. 5-alpha-pregnenolone, 5-beta-allopregnenolone, all overtly low. And given his lower urinary tract symptoms and his BPH, progesterone may be a consideration for prostate health. And I will explain why in a little bit. But now I'm just going to zoom into each of those sections so you can actually see them on your screen. These are the key enzymes involved in, well, some of the key enzymes involved in hormone metabolism. The one thing standing out here is that red arrow pointing to excess aromatase activity. So he has symptoms of low testosterone. His level looked a little suboptimal, and he's aromatizing too much. So we are going to want to downregulate aromatase. Methylation looks good because as long as it's sort of in the middle or to the right, that's great. And then looking at the top here, 5-alpha reductase activity is right in the middle. But given his prostate symptoms, he might benefit from downregulating that enzyme too. And here, going back to treating the cause, we're going to think about what might be causing excess aromatase for him. Stress is a common one. In his case, he's got poor dietary choices. He probably has some inflammation. So I'm thinking that might be the culprit for him. And this is page 2 of Robert's report. It's everything we tested and whether it's high or low. So I'll just give you a quick tour here. Just notice all the progesterone metabolites are low. I like that all the cortisol metabolites in general are optimal. That is great. That is representing optimal cortisol utilization. And then on the bottom left, most of the androgens are blue, so very low in the androgen section, but then unfortunately the estrogens are kind of outweighing the androgens, and we have a lot of high estrogens, especially these catechol estrogens, which we want to make sure go through phase 2 after phase 1 so that they don't have the chance to form those harmful DNA adducts. Now we're just going to zoom in, and even though the actual progesterone level is optimal, you want to think of each section kind of as a whole. So everything else here is pretty much low or low-ish. So that is a better way to assess his progesterone status. Don't get stuck on just one single marker. Just think of the section as a whole. And so now you might be wondering, why do men need progesterone, or why does it matter? It actually improves brain health, bone health, and it's important for fertility. And progesterone can protect the prostate from the proliferative effects of estrogen, and it may help prevent BPH from developing into prostate cancer. And progesterone and testosterone activate a protector gene called P53, and that prevents the proliferation of prostate cancer cells. And progesterone also inhibits 5-alpha reductase, so it can lower dihydrotestosterone. And DHT stimulates the production or the proliferation of prostate cells. Estrogen dominance, on the other hand, activates an oncogene called BCL2, which can contribute to the development of prostate cancer. And if you're wondering how to give progesterone to men, topical progesterone dosing for men tends to range between 5 and 15 milligrams per day. And you might think about compounding it with about 30 to 50 milligrams of chrysin to help inhibit aromatase. And this combo can be used in addition to testosterone to just make sure that testosterone doesn't aromatize and doesn't make DHT. And so again, this is Robert's androgen section. Notice they're trending low. Also, look how DHT compares to testosterone. I think he is making too much of that into DHT, although it's not resulting in high levels because the precursor is low. And as men get older, testosterone tends to decline while DHT goes up because of increased 5-alpha reductase activity, and higher DHT levels contribute to prostate enlargement, which increases with age. And this clinical trial showed that giving testosterone to older men with hypogonadism helped decrease their prostate volume, it lowered their PSA, and improved their lower urinary tract symptoms, so it treated BPH. And now we can see how Robert's androgen pattern is related to his prostate symptoms. So next we're going to look at his estrogens. And we know that too much estrogen can contribute to erectile dysfunction, low libido, and low sperm count. And on his report, the 2-hydroxy and 4-hydroxy estrogens are elevated, and 4-hydroxylation is outweighing the other pathways of phase 1 detox. So that's what I've circled there. Note the green rectangles representing optimal methylation here and here. So that's a good thing. So I think we're going to want to work on phase 1 more, and we don't have to worry too much about methylating at this point. And so we all know that 4-hydroxyestrone can be harmful to breast health. It also can promote BPH and neoplastic transformation of BPH cells. CYP1B1, which is the enzyme responsible for 4-hydroxylation, is increased in cases of prostate cancer, and higher expression of this enzyme is associated with worse outcomes. And this is Robert's oxidative stress marker, its upper range. It could be related to the elevated hydroxyestrogens, but other sources of oxidative stress include chronic stress, inflammation, insomnia, rheumatoid arthritis, and type 2 diabetes. Those are some common ones. So we also want to think what else could be contributing. And always treat the cause if you know it, but some common strategies would be eat the rainbow every day, N-acetylcysteine, allium vegetables, melatonin. Even yoga can decrease oxidative stress, especially if psychosocial stress is contributing to it. So to sum up the room for improvement that we found on Robert's report, he has decreased androgens. He is aromatizing too much of them, which is leading to the excess catechol estrogens. Catechol is another word for the hydroxyestrogens. And these can form DNA adducts and cause oxidative stress. There's also lack of sufficient progesterone to balance out the kind of excess estrogen. And my first thought was to think about hormone supplementation for Robert, but he really wanted to try to avoid that at first. So I might have given him progesterone and chrysin and possibly testosterone, like I was saying earlier, but we came up with this treatment plan for him that he felt more comfortable with. We're going to give him a good dose of DIM to push 2-hydroxylation, inhibit aromatase, and it also might improve prostate health. We're going to work on gut health because that is essential to hormone metabolism, hormone production, and decreasing inflammation. So we're doing all these great things for food, for gut health, like minimizing the sweets, not eating late at night, eating a rainbow, increasing fiber, and having a good variety of food in the diet. We're also going to give him methylated B vitamins and zinc because those can be helpful in testosterone production. Magnesium is going to be helpful for sore muscles. It also can help increase progesterone production because it supports pituitary health. And he's going to stretch because I think he wasn't doing that. And this is why this is kind of an explanation for how gut health is related to testosterone levels. We all know about the estrobolome, but there also is evidence that there may be a testobolome. Certain bacteria in the gut can produce testosterone. They've done experiments on mice where they did a fecal transfer from a male mouse to a female mouse, and it increased the testosterone levels in the recipient. And they've also done studies with supplementing with certain probiotics, which resulted in higher testosterone levels. Hasn't been proven in humans yet. I keep checking. That one was L. reuteri, by the way. And so after that treatment plan, Robert had significant improvements in his symptoms. He wasn't so much concerned about BPH symptoms. He wasn't so much concerned about erectile function. So that's amazing. Constipation improved. Now he's complaining of a little bit of decreased libido and sleep maintenance. And so this is a 5-month follow-up comparison. Just again, notice how the 4:2 ratio on the top went from red to yellow. So that's come down a little bit. There are more green markers on the report on the right. So that also is excellent. I like that the testosterone is in range. And what else is in range? 5-beta pregnadiol and progesterone are now green. So somehow improving gut health and magnesium supplementation. And his progesterone is better. So that's pretty amazing. Also DHEA plus here. Let's look at that last one. Where'd it go? My goodness. Somehow we skipped forward multiple slides. Okay, so the DHEA plus DHEAS was low and it now is optimal, so that's amazing. Okay, so now let's get back on track here. Looking at enzyme function, the 5-alpha reductase activity decreased, the aromatase activity decreased. Wonderful. What else? Downregulating aromatase made the whole androgen neighborhood greener. So on the bottom, just notice a lot more green androgens, which I like. Here's just showing how many progesterone metabolites improved. So this one, and this one are now technically in range compared to only one in range before. And we're also seeing that the 4-hydroxyestrone percentage and oxidative stress decreased slightly. So we went from a red to a yellow for this one. Oxidative stress, it's still upper range, but we went down a few points. So we're in the right direction, but we still have some more work to do. This is a summary of everything that improved on his HuMap when we followed up. What are we going to do next? So because the 4-hydroxylation is still too high, we're going to think about downregulating CYP1B1, which is the enzyme that promotes 4-hydroxylation. So we're going to think about avoiding things that promote it. So avoid the things listed after the plus sign, and then consider things after the minus sign, like green tea, rooibos tea, resveratrol. Or we can also try to add some of these Apiaceae family foods to his diet. That includes carrot, celery, cumin, etc. This is why we might think about resveratrol. I hope this isn't overwhelming, but these are these DNA adducts, estrogen DNA adducts that we don't want to form. So combining resveratrol and N-acetylcysteine can help prevent the formation of these. The N-acetylcysteine kind of prevents this pathway here and allows the glutathione sulfotransferase to conjugate and eliminate those estrogens. Resveratrol is slowing down phase 1, so less is going into the system at once, so it actually has time to methylate and do phase 2 detox. And these are all supporting bringing these metabolites towards COMT or towards glutathione sulfotransferase for safe elimination. Hopefully that made sense. Resveratrol has specific benefits for men. It potentially may help prevent or reduce BPH. It may support erectile function because it has certain mechanisms of action that could be beneficial. And so to add to Robert's treatment plan, obviously we're going to still keep working on lifestyle, reinforce that good diet, and we might add resveratrol plus N-acetylcysteine so that we can try to reduce oxidative stress. And then we're going to think about melatonin. Melatonin reduces oxidative stress and also can help downregulate aromatase. And because he was complaining of sleep, we're hoping this will help with that too. So we covered gut health and testosterone, but I have a very short case to show you how the gut and estrogen metabolism are connected. This is a premenopausal female complaining of constipation, central adiposity, and she has a family history of breast cancer, which is why she wanted to do this test. So just notice the elevated parent estrogens. So that's estrone, estradiol, estriol. I think, and then also comparatively lower metabolites. And so I think this pattern is because of her constipation. That's phase 3 estrogen metabolism, is the estrogens leaving the body, and it's not happening at a regular rate. She also had the GI 360 stool test, and this is just the beta-glucuronidase marker, which is upper range for her. Beta-glucuronidase is an enzyme that deconjugates estrogens and allows them to recirculate. So when it's high, it can contribute to excess estrogen levels. And just to review, the estrobolome is this microbiome of colonic bacteria that induce estrogen metabolism. And proper estrogen metabolism depends on microbial abundance and diversity. And if someone has gut dysbiosis, that's associated with impaired estrogen metabolism because of altered beta-glucuronidase levels, like in this case I showed you. So if you're treating a patient who has gut problems and you're trying to improve their hormone health, you can think of all these considerations. Most of them involve improving the amount of soluble fiber in the diet and just making sure they're having regular bowels. Giving a good variety of plant foods is associated with improved microbiome diversity. And what was the other thing I wanted to point out? Calcium D-glucarate can inhibit beta-glucuronidase, and it helps bind and eliminate excess estrogens. So here is our last case. This is a premenopausal female with excess androgens. So I guess I kind of spoiled what the report's going to look like. These are her symptoms. This is a 29-year-old female complaining of fatigue, stress, low libido, and desiring to improve body composition, which has not been happening despite adequate exercise and healthy eating. On her HuMap report, we're seeing high estrogens or upper range in high androgens, but we do have some good news. The green zone of this arc on the left is showing phase 1 estrogen metabolism looks excellent. No oxidative stress, that's great. We have a couple progesterone metabolites that are suboptimal. This gray dial here is showing that she's favoring cortisone over cortisol. That's the preferred finding. High estrogen can actually exaggerate this preference a little bit. So I think that's what's happening here, but this balance is not problematic. And then on the bottom right, the only thing standing out is slightly lower aromatase activity. I don't necessarily want to increase aromatase. I think we just need to focus on decreasing androgens and estrogens. Beside that one herb that I told you about, Coleus furskoli, that's the only thing that can increase aromatase activity that I know about that's not a poor lifestyle choice. So eating too much sugar, just unhealthy things tend to increase aromatase activity. So usually it's not the treatment goal in most cases. This is page 2 of this patient's report. On the upper left, you can see those suboptimal progesterones. This thing is standing out, 5-pregnine triol. You might not be familiar with it. It is sort of close to progesterone, but it's produced by the adrenals. So when it's high, it can be a marker of PCOS. And then look on the top right here, all of these cortisol metabolites, cortisone metabolites are upper range / high. So we're going to want to address the excess cortisol utilization. We're really going to want to address the stress because that's central to the case. On the bottom left, all these androgens are all flared up. And then on the bottom right, so are the estrogens. So phase 1 and 2, phase 2 looks excellent. The balance between the phase 1 estrogens looks great. All of these are in optimal range as far as the 2, 4, and 16 hydroxy percentage. These catechols are kind of high, but that's because all the estrogens are high and they are being effectively metabolized, but not to the point of bringing them into range. So these are the actionable findings on her report. Too much androgen, too much estrogen, suboptimal progesterone in general, and upper range cortisol metabolites, indicating increased cortisol production and utilization. This treatment plan is a little bit complicated because we've been working with her for a while. So she's already been doing some adrenal support, but I think we really want to work on lifestyle here to help improve her ability to tolerate the stress in her own life. But okay, so top to bottom here, we're giving this tincture blend that can improve progesterone production. And we give it second half of the cycle. Spearmint tea is a great one to downregulate 5-alpha reductase, 3 cups per day. She admitted that she only started this 3 weeks prior to the test, but we're going to see, did it work? Cordyceps is excellent for improving energy. It can increase VO2 max, interestingly. That's a measure of lung capacity during exercise, which is really cool. And it can increase ATP production and decrease inflammation. We're going to think about supporting electrolytes with this sea salt water. And we're going to have her move around more during the day. So she was sitting. Her job is very sedentary, even though she does exercise a lot, beyond that. But we're going to have her take breaks throughout the day to walk. And she's going to try to get organized around what things are stressing her out and kind of tackle them one at a time. So hopefully we're going to decrease her androgens. We're going to downregulate aromatase, calm down the estrogen levels, and get her moving a little bit more. And at 7-month follow-up, we have a lot more green hormones than before. Estradiol is now, I know there are some things to improve up here still, okay? But we made some good improvement. Estradiol is green now. DHT, spearmint stopped it from being upper range, so now it's optimal. Metabolized cortisol is now optimal. This is great. So I think she's managing her stress a little bit better. Because we downregulated 5-alpha reductase, we also lost some of the 5-alpha pregnadiol because that is also made by 5-alpha reductase. That's okay. We got rid of the DHT, which can be really problematic. So here are the baseline results, and I kind of circled all the places where we saw some changes. So I'm going to try toggling back and forth. First, look on the upper left, that 5-pregnine trial goes green. That is great. The metabolites on the top right, baseline, a lot of them are high. Follow-up, a lot of them are green. Bottom right, let's look at the estrogens before and then after. In general, that section got a little bit cooler, so that is good. And the DHT on the kind of middle, bottom, upper range, green. So generally, we're seeing more green optimal values and decrease that pesky DHT. As far as phase 1, the catechol estrogens that are high on the left now have all come into range. So estrogen metabolism is still looking really good. The one suboptimal COMT activity marker got better on the retest. So methylation is fully optimized. And as far as enzyme activity, we decreased 5-alpha reductase. We decreased aromatase a bit because we wanted to decrease the androgens and decrease the estrogens. So I think we were successful there. Methylation still looking good. And then at first glance, the changes to the androgen neighborhood seem pretty negligible. I do like that the DHT came down. OHET also came down. That's a 5-beta reductase metabolite. So that's also a product of cortisol metabolism, and it's an androgen produced by the adrenals. So I think that the work we've done on stress tolerance and HPA axis is helping. And then if you look on the histogram for the androgens, even though a lot of them are still upper range / high, they all went down. Mostly all went down. So we're going in the right direction, but I think we need to continue to work on this. It's a lot of improvement. We're on the right path. These are all the things that improved. And so symptom-wise, she's feeling better physical strength, more energetic, can tolerate more stress. She actually experienced a 5-pound weight loss, which she'd been working at for quite a while. And this is the first time she saw a difference. So I think because the DHT is lower and because the estrogens are lower, I think that really helped. And libido has gone up with better stress tolerance. And so my ideas of what to try next are, we're going to add in myo-inositol plus D-chiroinositol. It's a common treatment for PCOS, and it can help increase progesterone and decrease the androgens by promoting ovulation and improving inflammation and insulin sensitivity. And we're going to stop the progesterone supportive tincture because I don't want her to be on too many supplements, and I think this one's going to take the place of it. And then we're going to give her calcium D-glucarate to try to bind and eliminate the excess estrogens. It also can help bring down the androgens too. And so that was our last case. And I hope that these case examples have helped your understanding of interpreting the HuMap and formulating treatment plans based on results. And hopefully you have a good idea of actionable findings you can learn from each section of the report.